All right, welcome back. And in this lesson, I want to show you how to find the ranges for your liquidity pool, right, on the biggest assets. So this method works when you are deploying capital to the coins that are big. Let's say Ethereum, Solana, Sui, Bitcoin. I mean, within top, I don't know, 50, top 100, more or less, something like that. When you have a clear price history of at least a year or two, so most of the biggest blue chip crypto coins will have that history, but this method does not apply to low market cap coins like most meme coins or most AI projects or something that was launched recently, so to speak, and is not available on major exchanges, and basically any coin that does not have a long enough price history. But on most assets, the biggest ones at least, you're gonna be using this tool, this indicator, so to speak, and you will be able to determine your ranges pretty well. So the tool that I'm going to show you is available on the TradingView platform as an indicator. So in this case, as you can see, I am on ETH USD chart. And of course, the price itself is going to be slightly different from the decentralized exchange. So you have basically two options: either simply adjust and more or less use the same pricing, more or less. It's just going to be different by just a few dollars in most cases. Or you have another option, which is to actually go to that specific pool on a TradingView as well. So what you can do is go to, for example, ETH USDC, for example, and choose DEX. And right here, you will see which one you want to use. So this is from Uniswap, some other from Uniswap, but then basically if you use, for example, this one, it's going to be pretty much the same, but it's going to be from the Uniswap DEX. If you use, for example, Aerodrome or something else, you want to choose that. But throughout my experience and many years of experience, I don't bother doing that. I just used one of the charts from any major exchange, and then I adjust the pricing as necessary because the difference is just a very marginal. So there is no point in giving yourself additional headache. So, and the tool that you're going to be using will be accessible through indicators, and you want to search for bull's eye borders, and this indicator from Cosmo Evren, whatever, from this guy, specifically this one, you wanna, once you find it, you wanna click on it, right? So just go to the search and write bull's eye borders, specifically this one. And when you click on it, it will add itself on a chart. And this is how it's gonna look like. Basically just a few lines, some areas, whatever, right? And now, how do you use this to determine the range for your chart, for your pool? So if you want to add liquidity to the pool ETH USD, let's say on Aerodrome or Uniswap, doesn't matter. So you want to find a time frame where the red area is above the current price, and in most cases it's gonna be above the current price. But if it's not, as in this case, as you can see, the Ethereum price is above the top of the area, basically what you want to do is go a few time frames higher until you find the time frame where this area is higher than the current price. And because we are in a pretty beautiful bull run, so to speak, these months, this asset and this indicator is a bit lagging behind. but we are not using this to trade. We're using this to set the ranges. So you want to basically find any kind of time frame where the red area is above the current price. And also important thing to remember, which is if you are using this tool on higher time frames, it means that you are willing to be in a position in range for longer perspective. So for example, if you set the range using this indicator from the daily perspective, weekly or monthly, you then aim to be in range inside the pool for at least a good few days to weeks, maybe even a month, more or less, right? But if you go to, for example, 30 minutes and you set the range based off the 30-minute time frame, then naturally you expect to be in range for way shorter period of time, between, I would say, a few hours up to a day, maybe two. So in short, the smaller time frame you use for this method to find the range, the shorter time perspective you expect to be in range inside of the pool. The higher time frame you use, the longer term perspective you expect to be in the range as well. I basically, throughout my experience, I never recommend going beyond or smaller than 8 hours, but I usually use from daily upwards, because I I don't want to be in front of my laptop 24/7 managing my positions. DeFi offers a very good way to create passive income, so to speak, without that much of a management. So you're able to uh, basically live, and build up your capital elsewhere, right? So I do use from daily upwards because I want to be in range for as long as possible. So I don't have to manage my positions on a hourly basis, so to speak. So let's go back to daily. And in this case, because we are above, the current price is above the red area, I, I will go to 3 days. We're still above. Weekly, we are just at it. So we could use this. But if you go to monthly, on a monthly, as you can see, you are still beyond, uh, still below, sorry, the red area. So you can use this as your reference point. And now basically you have two options. You have a conservative option, which is going to be much bigger range. So you're going to be in range for longer, but you're going to generate less fees, because the bigger the range, the less fees you're going to generate. Or you have a bit of a riskier option, so to speak, where is basically smaller range but more fees. But then the price can leave the range easier, so to speak. So, and the two options that you have are basically, you either set the range from the top of the red line till the first line of the yellow area. So this could be your range, and in this case you would be setting the range of 31%, which is a pretty big range for Ethereum. And by setting this range, you will be in range definitely for quite a while, unless something exponentially happens and Ethereum just explodes to one side or another. But that's not a very common pattern, so to speak. So we're going to be in range for quite a while. And this is the riskier, so to speak, more shorter term range. And the second option, which is much more conservative, which would be from the top of the red line to the lower yellow line, just like this one right here. And in this case, you would be in range for about 44%. So if you set this range, then you're pretty much safe for quite a while. But keep in mind that the bigger the range, the more wider the range is in total percentage, the less fees you're gonna generate. So just be mindful about that. So if you are feeling a bit risky or you have some additional capital available that you want to manage more and be more active in DeFi, then of course you can use shorter time frames or riskier pools with smaller coins and basically participate that way. But in this case, for example, with this range, you basically set your upper range at 4,690 more or less, and the lower range of 3,239 more or less. And then you're going to be in range for quite a while, earning the fees while the Ethereum price moves within this range. Now, if we go to back to the daily and see any other asset, let's say Sol, even on a daily perspective, as you can see, we are way below the red area. So you have, once again, two options. Use the top line to the first yellow line, which does not give you much space to the downside in this case, and it would be a range of 16% more or less, or the second option from the red one till the yellow bottom one, which would give you a range of about, I believe it's going to be about 25 or something. No, it's about 20%, which then gives you a little bit more space to the downside as well. So in this case, if you would choose this range, for example, you would be entering with way different deposit ratio, which would not be 50-50, of course, because you were entering pretty much at the bottom. So you would be giving in way more Solanas, and as the price go to the upside, you will be converting to USDC, and in this case you would be depositing more towards 50-50, because from the current price you have space both to the upside and downside, a bit more to the upside and less downside, but that will be about 60-40 more or less, the deposit ratio. So you also have to think about that as well. If you don't like the current range and you think that this is not a good range, for example, of course you can go to different time frame, like 3 days maybe, and set the range from the 3 days to this or this. But the higher time frame you go, the bigger the range is gonna be. So if you want to be in range for Solana pool, for example, at least a few weeks, then you could use from daily to 3 days, even to weekly. But if you wanna get in, do some earn some fees, some yield, but you don't expect to close the pool after just a few days, then you can definitely use the higher time frame. But if you do expect that you will need that capital elsewhere just after a few days, then there is no point setting such a big range, because you can make much smaller range, earn more fees, and if you know that your deposit will be used elsewhere after just, let's say, 2 or 3 days, you can then go to, let's say, 2 hours more or less, and on 2 hours we have it's not too bad. So you could set the range like that or like this, and if you see that the price is very close to the red line, you can make from the red line just a bit more, just by eye, just a bit more, just a bit higher than the red line. Like, it's not a rule to have specifically from the red line specifically to the yellow line or something like that. It's guidance more or less, but it's not a specific rule that this and not like anything else. So you wanna set the range. In this case, you could do something like that, just a bit above the red area, and let's say right here. So you're gonna have the range of 6%, which is a pretty normal range for Solana to stay in for at least a day or two, 2 to 3 days, even sometimes, depending on how the market moves. These days, the market is pretty hot. I should say, but still 6% move daily is not happening in most cases. So if you know that your deposit amount, that you will need that money within a few days, then you should go to lower time frames, set the range like that, earn the yield, and then withdraw the money and then use the capital elsewhere that you need to. But if you expect to deposit into the pool and keep the money in for as long as you can, for days, weeks, maybe even months, then of course you should go to higher time frames and use much bigger ranges. But once again, what I'm saying here is not a rule. It's just for your visual guidance on what kind of range you can expect to set. And it also needs to apply to your current position, because maybe you don't want to set the range, let's say like this, because maybe you want to deposit mostly in Solanas or mostly in USDC. Maybe you don't want to deposit in this ratio of, in this case it would be maybe 70-30 more or less, something like that. Maybe you want to deposit mostly Solanas or mostly USDC, then of course you would set the range, let's say like that. So it's totally up to you and based on your personal position. But as you're getting started in understanding how this whole system works, and while you are not on the advanced DeFi content, education, and advanced methods on how to manage the ranges, the very good beginning setup would be to use this tool and just to play around with these methods. So basically, higher time frames gonna give you bigger ranges and you're gonna stay in range for longer. Shorter time frames will give you smaller ranges, you will earn more, but the position can go out of range much quicker, which is not a problem if you know how to manage it. But when you're just getting started and getting familiar with the whole DeFi liquidity pools, earning the fees, earning the yield, rebalancing the pools, etc., then this tool is absolutely incredible to get started. So this is what I would recommend. I just show you how to use it, and now it's totally up to you to go ahead, play around, do the homework, and experience this tool yourself by setting up different ranges, maybe with small capital, just to see how you feel and just to get an idea of how it all works. So thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.